All right. Hey there. Welcome to Beauty and the Pom podcast. I'm Kiani Mills.
And I'm Andy Reid.
Two friends who have a very similar set of values, but who have taken very different life paths to end up in similar situations.
We are also business owners, parents, property enthusiasts, and bloody short on time. So we bring you this podcast to shine a light on humanising business.
Because look, let's face it, business is life, and life is business.
Kiani, how are you?
I'm amazing. How are you?
I'm really, really good. So this first episode, gang, is just a little bit about each other, right? So we want to help you to get to know us a little bit. And then from there, hopefully, we'll make some sense at some point. What do you reckon, Kiani?
Yeah, I feel like start as acquaintances. And by the end of this, hopefully we're right on into the friendship and we can make some lifelong friends through this.
Well, fingers crossed. That, or at least you know quite quickly that you don't like us. Either way, we'll save you a bit of time.
Yeah, we're not going to be precious about it. We get it.
Indeed, indeed. Now, Kiani, let's shine the spotlight on you first because you are way more interesting than me. Now, Kiani Mills, give us a bit of an MO. Who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, okay. So far from interesting. I think you definitely win the hat on that one. You're way better on your Facebook Lives than I am. Look, by day, I own a conveyancing business and I work quite heavily in that company. I also have a buyer's advocacy business in Queensland only where we buy homes and investment properties for our clients. So during the day, I live the corporate life and I love it. I love my businesses. I have a massive passion for property as the reason we're connected.
Indeed.
And at night time, I wear the hat of being a parent to my beautiful children. And I live a bit more of a undercover life in my spiritual world.
Undercover? You're the least undercover person on the planet when it comes to that. But anyway.
Well, it feels a bit more undercover because it's a little bit more internal. The journey that you go through is internal and it's up to you whether you share that or not.
100%.
And I tend to share. I didn't always, but I've now come through my darkness and seen that sometimes by sharing, you can help others.
Oh, totally. And I think that's really why we properly connected, right? It started out with property and then you started sharing some weird pictures about people with eyeballs in their foreheads and all that sort of jazz,
and
right?
The moon.
And
yes.
the moon. And yeah, going for the moon. Now, kids, names?
Kobe is just about to turn 13 and Summer is 10.
13?
I know.
I didn't realise that they were that old.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a baby when I had my babies.
Right.
But, I've done things backwards to most.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now at the point where they are old enough. We've just come back from being overseas and we have a lot more holidays to go on.
Mm-hmm.
Got a steady business, got the ability to take them away and not have to worry as much. You still worry as a parent, but
For sure.
Yeah, I've done a little bit backwards to most.
Oh, look, it's not a drama. I mean, you seem to be living a fairly amazing life right now, and it very much looks like a life by design. You recently moved up to Queensland, though, didn't you, from Melbourne?
Correct, yeah.
Why?
Look, it's something that I never thought that I would be able to do, so I didn't allow myself to consider it. And then COVID happened. And I closed all of our offices and turned my business into a digital business. And there was one day I was talking to one of my staff who was moving to Tasmania to be with his family, saying, it's fine, you can work from there. You can work from anywhere. Go be happy, be with your family. And I went, hold on a second. There's something in that. And my world happened to have a beautiful little opening, and for the first time ever, we had no commitments in Melbourne. So the kids and I sat down and said, look, do we give it a crack? And we all agreed. And within 4 weeks, we were on a plane to quarantine to move up to Queensland.
That's mad.
It was insane.
Did the kids have a hit of reality when they ended up moving so far away from what they were accustomed to? Or is it something that they've really properly embraced? Because I know that you've mentioned once or twice where it was a little bit bumpy to begin with, right?
Yeah, we had, I think it was the emotional roller coaster. So it starts with excitement and it's new, everything's shiny, everything's fancy. Then the reality kicked in, and I think the biggest thing for the kids was their friends. And as a kid, yes, you can make friends quite quickly, but as we know as adults, the deep relationships are formed over time. They spent 7 years at school with their friends to formulate these relationships where they can just pop over to each other's houses. It's a bit different in Queensland. It's a bit of a bigger state. You can't necessarily ride your bike to all your mates' houses. So it's just relearning the things that have become second nature to them and finding their new groove. Like they've found new sports, they've found new interests and new hobbies that they never would have had in Melbourne. So there's a massive, massive part of them that is super happy and excited by it. They're just mourning that connection that they had in Melbourne. But I have no doubt they will, and they've found it, just not to the degree. So it'll come.
What about you?
I've been on a roller coaster. I got to again, excitement, glitz, glamour, fantastic. And then it got to a point of feeling really isolated because I'm used to Melbourne. I'm used to the social interaction. I feed off other people. So it was amazing because it gave me the grounding and the space that I needed to truly feel like me. And coming back to Melbourne just felt like pure anxiety. That's all past now. And I've had to really shift my identity, which is where my spiritual practices have really helped a lot because a lot of the anxiety wasn't mine. It was the pressure that I put myself under or the expectations I had on others. But being up in Queensland, it's given me a really beautiful, grounded home that feels safe and secure, which is something that I've never had before.
And we'll unpack that over the course of this podcast. And that's one of the reasons as to why we even began this discussion to have some sort of a show, whether it was video, audio, whatever it was going to be. Was because, I mean, from my perspective, and by the way, gang, I won't always be blowing sunshine up our arse. There will be a fair degree of casting stones and whatnot as well. But the thing that really held appeal for me in having this conversation over the course of a journey of a podcast is that you talk, the way that you talk and your words and your language and all that, it's really, really deep. Now, I like to think that I think about stuff, right? And I do sometimes, occasionally, just occasionally. But the way that you have gone through what you have gone through, and again, gang, little Easter egg thing here, you're going to get a lot of this unpacked over the journey. The way that you have found yourself now is pretty incredible. And the cool thing is, it's not like you've come from a background of privilege where you've just been fortunate that mummy and daddy stuck a 5-figure check in your bank account, or you've not had this silver spoon up your backside, right? You've come from really genuinely humble surrounds and a really, really, really challenging start to life. Do you ever look back and go, far out, like, how the fuck have I managed this?
Constantly. Yeah. And it took me a little while, especially in business. I actually had breakfast with a friend this morning and we were having this exact conversation. And I'm very fortunate that in my world, I put professionals in the place that they need to be to help me with the things that I am not good at. And the first thing as a business owner, bloody hell, take responsibility of the things you can't do and get other people to do them. Because when you try and wear all the hats, that's when shit falls apart.
Big time.
So I remember sitting down about 2 years ago and I pulled my business performance coach into a meeting because one of the pips that I was working with, from my perspective, wasn't performing. And so I'm like, I called breakfast. I sat down, I'm like, right, I'd really like to talk about how do I maximize him? How do I get the most out of him? And he goes, great. Now I'm going to tell you what I'd like to talk about. And I kind of sat there and went, okay, I'm listening.
Right.
And he goes, I need you to sit and just think for a minute. 2 years ago, take yourself back 2 years. What was everything you wanted 2 years ago? And I was like, to own my business on my own, run it the way I wanted to run it, be financially secure and be comfortable and safe. And he's like, where are you today? I was like, oh my God, I have all of those things. And it took someone else to tell me to shut up and pay attention So that was the kind of catalyst to it. So for the last 2 years, I've very much stopped and taken homage of the tragedy that's passed and accepted it and been so grateful for it, because while, yeah, shit happened, I wouldn't be who I am today without it.
100%. And there's a couple of little hints there, gang, that there has been some serious hurdles that Kiani's had to overcome and endure. And over the course of this podcast, I reckon you'll probably think I'm really irritating, but you'll actually think that this chick here is one of the humans that you'll be grateful to have connected with over the podcast. Kiani, when we talk about, macro conversation, what is and this is the sort of the crux of this first episode, what is the one thing that you wish you knew when you either started in a professional life? What is the one thing that you wish you knew back then that you hold so dear now?
And this is the question that I feel as though came up through that journey of looking back at life. And my professional journey started quite young. Mm-hmm. And
how young? How old were you?
Well, I moved out of home when I was 16 and started working 2 jobs so that I could survive. But
Which
I knew Big W and McDonald's.
Nice.
They do say that McDonald's raise the best employees, so
they do.
Thank you, Maccas.
They do. Well, everyone, when I first started hiring in real estate, people were saying, look for Macca's employees.
Yeah. Yep. I had the exact same thing. But as soon as I found legal studies in year 10, I was like, right, that's what I want to do. So as soon as I finished school, we'll say finished, I went straight and worked in a law firm. And that was where I went, right, that's where I'm going to find my happiness and find it. The grind and the hustle, and I mean, I'm proud of my work ethic. I watch my mum work really, really hard. So it's ingrained in me, and I hope that I'm instilling that in my kids as well. Mm-hmm. But I think the biggest thing now in hindsight as an adult and where I am now is I wish that someone had have just tapped me on the shoulder and said, it's okay to ask for help.
Oh.
Because I think that's something that even now as an adult, I still struggle with.
Oh, why do you think that is?
Because I'm bloody stubborn. And I live a life of independence, girl power.
Yeah, look, Road to Redemption starts with admission, right?
That's right.
I think that's in the
that's
AA
right.
manual. You're an independent woman, fiercely independent. Do you sometimes think that gets in your way?
100%. 100%. We know that vulnerability is key, and you can't be vulnerable if you're being dogmatically independent.
Big word, dogmatically independent. That's a big, big word. And you know what? And I think, and we're definitely going to unpack this on an episode at some stage for sure, is this whole topic of independence, feminism, and all that sort of stuff. Because, my bag, I was lucky enough, and I consider myself lucky, to be brought up by a really, really strong woman, right? Really strong woman, sometimes too strong. And off the back of that grew a huge appreciation for women, and I don't see gender genuinely. I just see people, and, you're either a dickhead or you're not, and that comes in, various forms. It's really interesting to hear someone like you who has been genuinely successful in business and continues to be, actually turn around and admit, you know what? Sometimes it's a pain in the arse being independent and being that fierce, Beyonce style, hold your hands up at me and all that sort of crap. Do you sometimes cop? And I know we're diverting off a little bit, but do you sometimes cop too much of the you go girlfriend type stuff, and does it kind of make you feel sick sometimes a little bit?
Oh, look.
Or does sometimes you go, is it a nice little recharge sometimes?
There's definitely things that I've said no to because it does lead down the
waving flags are outside of Parliament type stuff.
Yeah. And I'm quite Switzerland in most situations.
Yeah.
However, as we've said, girl power, yes, it's more coming from a perspective of me of I want to see strong women stand up. Mm-hmm. And be supported by other strong women. Mm-hmm. It's got nothing to do with gender, as you said, because I'm exactly the same. I grew up in the boys group. Mm-hmm. I was one of the boys wearing Hawaiian shirts and cargo shorts.
Brilliant. And we will make sure that makes an appearance on the Instagram page, by the way.
No.
We are definitely sticking that on the Instagram page. 100%. If ever you needed a reason to go follow us on Instagram, that's it.
Well, I can't wait to find photos of you from your childhood.
Oh, there's loads of shit ones. Don't you worry about that. Heaps of them.
The battle begins.
That is definitely going to be what we're going to do on Instagram. Find embarrassing pictures of each other.
That will be fun. Back to the question. Look, I think it is you will accept what you are willing to take on. And if it is something that you truly believe in and are passionate about, I'm 100% support you. However, I believe that we each own in our individual rights, gender, whether we have a gender, whatever we want to call it, are entitled to be successful no matter what we do. So I tell you what, it's friggin' exhausting. It's very exhausting, but it's something that is, that internal fire that you hear and you see in movies, things like that. You know you're on the right path when that fire gets lit.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Look, I mean, yes, there are some things out there that become a little bit like, ugh, really? Come on, like creating arguments because of certain things, because of feminist, not feminist, things like that. I'm not about that. You do you, boo. But so I tend to don't let that kind of stuff into my world.
Fair play.
Yeah. But I feel like this is way too much about me, and you definitely are interesting. So tell us about your daytime job and your nighttime job.
Daytime job. I've got a couple of things, I guess. So during the week, I'm the head of training for a major real estate franchise group across Australia and New Zealand, and we look after about 176, I think it is, something like that, offices. And I'm basically responsible for the skill set and the mindset of all of those officers, which is good fun and an interesting challenge. And my drug of choice is, thankfully, it's a healthy one, which is the world of auctioneering. Discovered one thing that I'm supposed to do in life with a big mouth and an accent is shout at people until they give me money.
And you're very, very good at it.
I'm all right. And I think the accent lets me get away with a hell of a lot more, which kind of adds a little bit more flavour to it, I guess. But, so I do that on the weekends. So, work, life and balance and all that sort of stuff, which is going to be another one of our episodes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's something that I always have fun with because bit of an obsessive compulsive disorder of some description.
Oh, yes. I've seen your posts at stupid o'clock in the morning and stupid o'clock at night doing weights so that you can counterbalance the crazy hours on planes and auctioneering and children and life.
Yeah. All of that. Sleep's boring.
Also, too, gang, we will uncover that and maybe even give him a little label or two for his obsessive compulsive tendencies.
This will turn into therapy at some stage, gang. It will turn into therapy that you can all just come along for the ride.
I'll bring the tissues.
Yeah. Oh man. So that's during the day, and it is a 7-day week operation, pretty much. But as well as that, and more importantly, I would say, I'm a dad to two pretty cool kids. Eliza, who is 7, and Callum, who is 3. I'm a husband and worse a half to Felicity, who is also in property, is in property management, and is about to actually have her own business, take over her own business. So
that's amazing.
Which is awesome, thoroughly deserved. She's definitely earned her shot.
It's amazing.
And looking after them, and I used to be into fighting. I used to fight a little bit. But time to commit to the process of being ready for a fight is an interesting challenge.
So when you say fighting, you're talking boxing?
Kickboxing, yeah.
Kickboxing. So gloves, no gloves?
Yeah. Gloves. So not backyard fighting.
I'm thinking like Jackie Chan kind of.
No. Definitely no. God, right. No. He'd kick my ass. We're talking more about gloves. Very amateur stuff. Very, very amateur stuff. Which I did because I just needed something to make me present. Which is one of my.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, look, if you're not paying attention to what's going on, you get a punch in the face, which is a really careful reminder, right? Really.
And that's really cool, though. That's a really cool way of doing it. I guess people use meditation, yoga, surfing, Pilates, like lots of different forms. But the analogy that you just put to that seems to obviously fit your personality.
Yes.
But what a cool way to stay present.
Look, it's been
kick the shit out of someone else.
Yeah, or have them kick the shit out of you, which is what happened in my last fight. And I got knocked spark out.
Ooh.
And the reason why I got knocked spark out is because I wasn't present.
You're right.
My head was just so far out from where I was. You'd have thought that the adrenaline would be kicking in before you get into the ring against the guy that's tattered up and looks like he could punch a hole in a wall. I had zero adrenaline. And as the first bell rang and I was just not in the right space at all, I was like, this is not ideal. And then I was actually winning that fight a little bit, and then I clocked him and it caught him a bit keen and he just went to town, overhand right me straight into the temple, and I was down like a sack of potatoes.
Wow.
Yeah, but it had nothing to do with him.
Yeah.
It had everything to do with me. So it was a painful reminder.
So looking back on that, where was your head at?
I was in a real dark place.
So you were in fear?
It wasn't even fear. It was, in fact, it was beyond fear. Like,
Wow.
for me, the dark place is dark.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a pretty cool, chilled sort of guy most of the time. There's a mask. I'm very good, unfortunately, and I wish I wasn't. I'm very good at putting on a mask.
And this is definitely something that we will go through, because I think one of the things, step number one, acknowledging it, being aware of it. A lot of people don't think that there's a difference between the light and the dark, but there bloody hell is.
Yep.
And there's also a way to be able to function with and without the mask. But
100%.
being aware of it, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty big. Yeah, it was a pretty big breakthrough for us, and it's been a journey and a half, which is probably why we ended up gravitating towards each other, right?
Timing.
So yeah. But as you can hear, I'm not from around here. I'm from England originally. I've for some reason got myself a degree in engineering, which was not useful in any way, shape, or form.
Interesting.
I'm qualified in mechanical and manufacturing engineering.
Can we put that skill to use at all?
It makes me feel clever sometimes.
Okay. Yep.
I'll
tick the box.
Like
then.
once upon a time, I was intelligent. Tick.
Tick. Mum, be proud.
Yeah, indeed. Look, numbers are relatively easy things for me now. So, but then I actually went into hospitality purposefully. I started as a part-time bartender at a soccer stadium, and it happened to be the soccer team that I supported as well, which is even better.
Handy.
It was very handy, and then fell in love with it. It's not one of those ones where people just do hospitality because they don't want to do anything or they don't know what to do or whatever. I just loved it. Like the buzz of being behind a bar that's 3 deep and you're running around with your hair on fire, making people happy, having banter with all sorts of different people. That's really cool. And
as I did allude to in the intro, we've had different life paths, but very similar situations. And Andy just literally took the words out of my mouth, because mine too. Bartending was the funnest, most exhilarating, and I truly put my skill set of being able to communicate with anybody down to being a bartender.
100%. So the soccer stadium gig that I worked at, so I worked at the stadium through my university degree, and then it was getting more and more full-time, and then I was doing full-time degree and full-time job and whatnot. And it was quite clear that that's where I was going to go. They offered me a management contract out the back of that, and it was an EPL soccer ground, right? So, and where I worked in the stadium was the corporate section. So I went on any given Saturday, I would have a conversation with a true blue collar Geordie who literally works their arse off just to pay for their season ticket. And then I'll get a call on the radio to go up to the chairman's lounge where we're talking multi-billionaires. Yeah. And I've got to go and converse with them within and calibrate my mind to be able to have that conversation in the space of a lift. And I didn't, and obviously I wasn't making any conscious effort around that. I was just doing my thing, and I didn't realize that was something that I was actually really quite good at.
And it primes you
Oh,
for life too. I mean, again, our situations are a little bit different. I was working in nightclubs in the city dealing with drunk people, getting in the middle and tearing apart domestics.
oh
and
yeah, we've done that.
people
Yeah,
being
yeah,
kicked
yeah.
out, and definitely not as glamorous as that. I mean, I did do a stint at Club 23 at Crown, and that was probably as fancy as we got. But it gives you the skills that, the age-old saying, you don't know what you don't know. And at the time, you've got no bloody idea. But now in life, we can sit here and resonate on, where did I learn that skill from? Oh, it was that meaningless bar job that I had.
Totally. And we were looking after serious celebs back in the day. So when I'm talking serious, I'm not just talking the Z-listers and whatnot. I'm talking, like Posh and Becks.
Yeah, wow.
I'm talking, serious people. Like, looked after the entire England team, and all that sort of stuff. And the thing is, you realise that they are all flesh and blood as well.
They're humans.
They are human beings. Becks was bitching and moaning about his new football boots, giving his feet grief, right? And he was saying, I can't be fucking arsed doing this. And he was being nice. He was one of the nicest guys I've met, actually. But they're human.
Yeah.
And everybody's human. Everyone bleeds the same.
Totally.
So, yeah. But then met my now wife, who was an Australian.
Yeah.
Came over after a long stint of long distance. Fell into the real estate game.
Amazing. So how long have you been in Australia now?
12 years.
Yeah, wow.
12 years. And it's...
You're just like part of the furniture.
I love it, man. Like, I'd never swap it for a million years.
Yeah.
Like, especially the hole that England's turning into.
The good old Aussie dream.
It is a little bit like that, although I do feel that I've been sold down the river with this Melbourne weather on occasions, right?
See, that's part of the reason I moved to Queensland.
Yeah, you keep selling it to me, and I'll be honest, you're doing a pretty good job, I reckon. So there, the real estate thing. At first I tried to do the real estate handbook of scripts and dialogues, and try and get this person to do this and get that person to do that, and it nearly sent me to the loony bin. And then threw the textbook out. And from there, it's ended up being all right.
Yeah. And look, I mean, knowing you for the time that I've known you, and we knew each other through social media for a long time before we actually connected. And from an outsider's perspective, it was pure admiration, because everything that you put out, which is part of why we connect and why we're here today, is to be raw and be vulnerable. And it's something that I've watched from a distance for so long, that not necessarily men, and I'm not categorizing that, but men in real estate tend to struggle, and they did, especially 5 or 6 years ago. They really struggled with being authentic and being their vulnerable selves, because as an agent, there was an expected persona that had to be worn, a mask as is such, and they were following in the footsteps of generations before them that behaved in a certain manner. And from an outsider's perspective, and guys, follow Andy on socials, you'll see I did allude to his lives before. He jumps on at any minute in time, and it's gold. It's absolute gold, and it's English. It all makes sense. There's no bravado. There's no ego. It's just purely you. And I feel like you've been a really strong presence and catalyst in the real estate industry to make those young guys go, oh, maybe I don't need to be like Uncle Joe around the corner. I can be trustworthy, and I can be honest, and I can be relatable, and I can put the client before the commission. Yeah,
I mean, it's a real fine line, right? So I personally, a lot of the live stuff, I don't do with any real intention. I just do. And that's the thing.
That's the beauty of it too.
I just do, and then I think later sometimes. And when it comes to that whole client before the commission side of things, there's a real minefield of cliches that I'm really conscious to try and avoid, because those cliched sort of I always put my customer first and all that sort of stuff, it's been done to a death by the Mad Men. If we're to put a bit of an analogy to it, it's like that show Mad Men, where it's all suits and show and so on and so forth. And to a degree, to be fair, I actually feel more recently, and I've mentioned this once or twice to a couple of people, that I actually feel that a lot of the real estate space is drifting back towards a digital Mad Men, in a sense, where it is all no socks, Lambos and all that. And I'm not judging, right?
They're definitely out there.
If Lambos are your thing, Sweet. Wonderful. I'm super happy for you if that's what you want. Amazing. But don't think that that's going to make you in any way relatable to the people that you actually want to make money from.
Correct. Yeah. You need to have a level of appeal, and you've got to appeal to them, not to
100%.
you.
100%. And look, there's certain markets where it is all, shimmer and shine and all that. And that's cool. That's absolutely cool. But I think the problem is you've got the top players that are in those markets that are doing their thing, that are driving their Lambos or their Audi R8 or whatever it is. And there's a lot of younger people that are thinking that that's the formula of success, but then they drive their Lambo to a $500,000 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in Hampton Park, which is out of suburbia Melbourne, by the way, for those of you that don't know. And it kind of looks a bit odd. It kind of looks a bit like you're trying too hard.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I just crack on, carry on, and do my thing, and don't really think too much.
Well, you're doing an amazing job, and I'm privileged to sit in this seat opposite you. And
Hardly.
I am dying to know the burning question.
Mm-hmm.
What do you wish you knew then that you know now?
I wish I knew that I could write my own script. That one's massive for me.
I love that.
I wish I knew that because, look, my parents were incredible parents. They were both police officers, and so they were both very much conforming to society.
Following the law.
Yeah. Job, house, marriage, life, blah, blah, blah. The conveyor belt.
Yeah.
All right, of life. And unbeknownst to them, and that's the way that they were kind of brought up. My dad had a really shit childhood, to be fair.
Yeah.
But the way that they sort of been molded is the way that they were molding me.
Which is normal.
Absolutely. So I'm not knocking them in any way, shape, or form. However, it's taken a series of car crashes, metaphorically speaking, and mentally speaking, for me to really understand that you genuinely, and this isn't bullshit, gang, you genuinely can write your own script and you can do your own thing.
Yeah.
And you can still do okay.
And be happy.
And that's it, right? Because happiness, let's not beat around the bush. Money, it doesn't make you happy, but it certainly makes your world turn.
It makes you comfortable.
And you kind of need money in order to live, right? House
Correct.
over the head, all that sort of stuff, right? So we're not going to talk in ideologies here.
No.
But at the same time, happiness is when you have found that right balance of money and life.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where happiness sits, where there's a balance. And for some people, that balance is requiring lots of money. And for some people, that requires zero money, but lots of happiness and go hugging trees and all that sort of stuff. And that balance is entirely personal.
Absolutely. And there's no judgment around that either.
Oh, totally. And I just kind of wish that I'd learned that and that I can do things to make me happy first, as opposed to be forever trying to make other people happy or proud or whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. And what beautiful things you can now teach to your children, because you know what you wish you knew then. You're going to raise them to know this now.
Well,
so you're giving them...
Yeah, 100%. At the minute, I'm trying to teach Eliza about business by selling her younger brother.
That sounds beneficial.
Yeah, I'm trying to show her how to make profit from an asset. Because I'm trying to sell him on eBay at the minute, which is fun. And
the reasons for selling him, what are the selling points? Fantastic 3-year-old.
Well, when he's not being an arsehole, he's actually quite cool. But I've offered to pay for expenses, and it's kind of when I say I'm selling him on eBay, it's more of a 2-year loan with an option.
Okay, but as long as he is trained, gets schooling, comes back to me with manners, and doesn't scream and shout.
Well, I'd just take the last bit.
Okay, no screaming and shouting.
Yeah, I just take the last bit. Yeah, I think 3-year-olds, testosterone kicks into gear and they've got no idea how to harness it.
And whoever decided that there was a terrible 2s.
Bullshit.
Because it's a terrible 2s, 3s, 4s, probably 5s. My 2 didn't chill out until they got to prep.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, true. I mean, the boy is, geez, and I don't want to paint it too bad because he is absolutely wicked. And the reason why we're not selling it on eBay just now yet is is because for all the shitty times, like he counterbalances that, and you can see that there's a cool kid coming through.
Don't they? They have a way of doing that too. They kind of beat you down until you're almost ready to pop them on a sale site, and then they look at you or they do something, they turn to you and go, "I love you, mummy," and you're like, "Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll forget all the bad stuff."
Yeah, it's kind of like golf, right? It's kind of like golf. Raising kids is like golf in the sense that you can have a round of golf and play every shot as shit as you like, and then there'll be that one hit that is just sweet as a nut that'll have you coming back.
Yep, that hole in one.
That is raising kids.
That's a sucker punch.
Oh,
that's what
totally.
It is. It's a false sense of security.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And there's nothing like your kids to make you humble.
That's right.
You think you're doing all right, and then you have to say a sentence like, Callum, get your head out the cat's arse. and all of a sudden you realise that life isn't that serious after all.
Yeah, absolutely. Take a beat, take a minute, have a laugh.
Get your kid out the cat's arse.
Save the cat.
Yeah.
All right, well, look, that's about us for episode 1, unless there's anything else you'd like to share.
Nah, I think that's not a bad start, campers. I reckon hopefully you've got a bit of an understanding as to who we are as individuals. Our purpose of this podcast is to hopefully just have some just open conversations. And, Kiani said it wonderfully about vulnerability. And for us, this is a business podcast. This very much is a business podcast. Don't get twisted in us thinking this is going to be an altruistic, we're going to heal the world sort of bullshit. It's not going to happen.
No pretenses.
No, God, no. But vulnerability is the key to true professionalism.
Yeah.
If you're going to be professional, if you want to be classed as a professional in whatever you do, you're going to have to accept what you're good at and what you're shit at.
Yep. And whether you're a business owner or an employee, you must perform. And performing is something that is individual.
Yep.
Yes, you might be part of a team, but if you're not putting in your best, then how the hell is that team going to perform? So everything that we talk about from business comes back into parenting, into relationships, into connections, networking, friends, family, the people that you spend your time with. And we'll talk a lot about that, about your pond and the people that you have in your pond. It's really important. But Andy said it perfectly. It comes back to real life, and that is the kid's head in the cat's ass. This is what happens, and this is the stuff that we want to highlight because we've been through the shit. We've literally laughed at it, cried at it. I know I've sat on the floor in like the fetal position of it, but you got to get up the next day. So hopefully along the way there's some things that we can share that, I don't know, might make you feel a little bit more human.
Yeah, 100%.
And might make you perform a little bit better in business.
100%.
So,
I reckon even Richard Branson would have had to have told one of his kids to stop eating the dog food at some point, right?
That's just like a rite of passage.
You know what I mean? I don't think you're doing it right if you're not doing something like that, right?
Correct.
So, gang, ultimately, business is life and life is business. And the sooner that we come to terms with that, the sooner we can crack on and improve in all facets of our life. Kiani, I can't wait to crack on with this with you.
It's going to be fun.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And gang, thank you so much for tuning into our very first episode of Beauty in the Pom. We hope to hear from you again. Please get in touch with us if you want us to go through anything that you're having a problem with.
Thanks, gang. Thank you so much for joining us. We are very grateful for your time, and we really hope that we've provided some value.
Follow us on Instagram if you've liked what you've heard, and if you have anything that you want us to talk about, things that might have been bugging you but you've not quite had the bottle to really bring it out into the open, send us a DM and we'll happily bring it to the table.